Good morning, everybody. If you would, come on in and have a seat and let's get started. We've got a lot of folks who want to present today, so we're going to ask that everybody that wants to be heard, but we'll do it in as brief a manner as we possibly can. And for us to get started, we'll call on Chairman Jaspers.
Let's all bow our heads together, please. Heavenly Father, we come to you today humbly, asking for your forgiveness every day, and your wisdom, and your guidance, and your just looking after us. Lord, please be with Cherokee County this week. The loss of 2 lives, a young lady at UGA, and the trooper will be buried this week in Cherokee County. And please look after them and all their families and those all involved in that. And keep us wise. We'll do this in your name. Amen.
Thank you. Okay. We're going to start right over here, and we'd ask for you to make a few comments and move as quickly as we can. Who's first? Chairman Houston. Thank you for that excellent job on the budget you did yesterday.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Today, I bring you House Bill 1197, LC 500718. House Bill 1197 would extend the rural zone tax credit program, and it allowed the rural zone tax credit program to also extend to historical homes. You know, so many times in downtown development you have 2-story buildings, and we're in dire need of residential, and this would include some of these homes in the rural area to rehouse them so we can get more people downtown. And this tax credit was originally one of the main things that has helped downtown development. And I know if you've ever been to Nashville, Georgia, or if you've been to Bainbridge, if you've been to Perry, you can see the result of this. And it was one of the, we want to extend it for 8 years, and it doesn't cost that much money to the state. From 2018 to 22, for purchasing rural areas, it was a tax credit of $5.2 million, and for rehabbing this, it was a tax credit of $4.5, which is really, and they put people back to work, and they're job tax credits by putting people back to work and restoring downtown developments.
Good. Thank you very much. We do have a question. Representative Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Madam Chair, is it not true that this tax credit would greatly benefit our rural communities?
It certainly would, and it is working, and you and Chairman Green were co-chairmans of the Rural Development Authority, and not Authority, Development Council, excuse me, and this is one of y'all's top priorities, is to redevelop rural areas.
Thank you.
Thank you. Dean Green has a question.
Thank you. Madam Chairman, you are so right that this was one of the main presentations for the Rural Development Council, and we appreciate you bringing this.
Thank you, and I appreciate your service.
Thank you, ma'am. Who's next? Representative Sheila Jones. Okay. Come ahead. Yes, ma'am. Go ahead. And when you present, please tell us where it is on the blue sheet. It'll make it easier for the members to find it. If it's, you know, what page number and what section it's under, it'll just be easier for us to move quicker. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. On page 4, I bring to you HB 1255, and the LC number is 481179. This bill provides for the procedure for preparation and filing of transcript. The current statute does not make it clear as to who the appellant makes the request for transcripts with. In some courts, the request is made with the judges, staff attorneys, or staff members. This has posed a problem in the past. The appeal is against the judge's order. This small change will allow the process to be the same in all of Georgia courts. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, no questions. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Come on up, Bill.
Good morning. Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. I'm on page 5. This is HR 302. It's kind of towards the top. and the LC number is LC 50068. I'm sorry, 0686S. All right, and this is a constitutional amendment, and I've brought this to measure before, I believe in 2022, and it talks about all unappropriated funds and monies from legal judgments, and unanticipated funds will be appropriated by the General Assembly.
Okay, thank you. No questions.
Thank you.
No questions. Thank you. Representative Earhart.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I bring before you HB 844, which is halfway down on page 2. This bill repeals and reenacts the Dietetic Practice Act. The language was a product of the collaboration between the Georgia Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics and the national organization of the same name. The bill does a couple of very important things. It provides clear language regarding the standards of practice for registered and licensed dietitians and nutritionists in the state of Georgia. This was a problem because there's been great ambiguity and confusion in the current code. It narrowly tailors the definition of medical nutrition therapy, which is the highest level of nutrition care that is often used to prevent and treat diseases. This is a necessary measure to protect consumers. It provides a pathway to licensure for all qualified nutrition professionals and very clearly defines what unlicensed nutritionists can do and what their scope of practice. This is for folks like trainers and health coaches and holistic wellness advisors. It passed unanimously out of committee, and I appreciate your favorable consideration.
Thank you, ma'am. See no questions.
Thank you.
Come on up, Rep.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. I am presenting HB 1138. It's on page 3, the third from the bottom. And this would add a 17th investment criteria to Georgia's Invest Georgia Fund.
That's it. No questions. Thank you, Representative Kendrick.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes,
Good
ma'am.
morning, Chairman. Good morning, colleagues. I bring to you HB 486, which is on the first page, and the substitute, it's LC 365739S. And the purpose of this bill is to improve consumer protections when a cemetery buries someone else in a plot someone has paid for. And this language is an improvement on current law with clearer language, protecting the rights of the consumer or the pre-needs burial purchaser if a mistake is made. And it also protects the interests of the cemeteries from frivolous or unreasonable claims by allowing a cause of action to be brought within 2 years of the finding of the violation of a Secretary of State or the State Board of Cemeterians. So if a purchaser of a pre-needs contract feels that the cemetery is in violation of the Cemeteries Act, they would make a complaint to the Secretary of State or the Board of Cemeterians.
Thank you, ma'am. See no questions. Representative Hagan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have House Bill 583. It is second from the top on page 2. This bill updates the code regarding Georgia's cottage food industry. It opens up a new delivery stream for cottage food operators so that they could, in addition to selling directly to a consumer, they would be able to sell their products to third-party vendors. I work very closely with the Department of Agriculture on it. They're in full support.
Okay, no questions.
Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have House Bill 1027. It's on page 3, and it's the very top one, and it's LC 491855S. This would, beginning in the 2030-2031 school year, one class of computer science or a CTAE course with embedded computer science would become mandatory for graduation. This would not increase the number of credit hours required for graduation. This class would take the place of certain math classes, certain science classes, a CTAE class, or an elective requirement. I worked very closely with the Department of Education on this bill, and it passed out unanimously of committee.
Good. Thank you, Representative Ballard. I see no questions.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Come on up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I am reading from the third page, the second from the bottom, HB 1149. We have 159 counties. About 90% of the counties do not report discretionary funds from constitutional officers. This bill simply says that constitutional officers can continue to do what they're doing with the discretionary funds that are not appropriated. They just must report how much discretionary funds they have to the county.
Thank you, Representative Maynard. I don't see any questions. Thank you. Well, who had a question?
I do believe that Chairman Taylor has a substitute that's in your folder. And what the substitute does out of committee is it just defines discretion.
We'll take that up in a minute. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Representative Cameron.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. I bring HB 590, which is number 3 on page 2 at the top of the page. What this bill does, it relates to criminal menacing of peace officers in the state of Georgia. Last year, after the incident at the police training center, a website was established called Cop City Cops, where information and data on over 2,000 peace officers in the state of Georgia were released. This bill provides for, defines who a family member is. It also defines information that, if it's released, could be considered under this law. What's considered online menacing of a peace officer, and the criminal penalty, and also the venue in which the case will be tried if there is a case.
No questions. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Go ahead, Rick.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is HB 1167. It's on the back page toward the end. Basically, it's the Peach tax credit. We're raising the cap of the state from $5 million to $10 million. This is for public schools, public programs, and college and career academies. This is for innovation. It raises the bar for public education. Basically, it also allows individuals to raise the amount they can donate. Also, joint filing, couples can do it as well, and corporations will raise it limits as well for them. This is a good bill to pass you down and see out of Ways and Means.
Thank you, sir. I don't see any questions.
Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Townsend. Yes, sir. Come on up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This bill, 1292, is found on page 4, third from the bottom. It simply requires that you identify yourself when you file a deed or related documents. It's aimed at stopping the ever-increasing fraud of selling people's homes without their knowledge.
Very good. See no questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have 2 bills today on consideration. Bill number 1 is on page 3, about a third the way down. It's HB 1099. It's working off of LC 481142S. What this bill does, it allows, it's adding language to an existing code to allow a landowner to use purple paint markings to identify their property lines, just as you can use a no trespassing sign.
Okay. See no questions on that bill. What's your next?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The second bill will be on page 4, about 2/3 of the way down. It's going to be House Bill 1274, working off of LC 460801. This bill, what it does is it reworks the veterinary loan repayment program by adjusting the annual loan purchase of $25,000 and capping the total funds of one individual can receive during a 3-year period. Kind of the 2 things that works along with this is to incentivize having large animal food industry vets in the rural communities of Georgia.
Okay, thank you. We got a couple of questions. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Representative. Have you passed a bill yet in the chamber?
No, sir, I haven't, and it just coincidentally to have 2 in the same day.
Very good, very good. Thank you. Thank you for bringing the bills.
Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Williams, is that you that has a question there?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm referring back to HB 1099 that you spoke about. You do know that in the Gullah Geechee tradition, purple keeps ghosts away and hants away from your property. Thank you for the shout out.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have one other question. Chairman Martin, is that your button?
Gentleman yield for a question.
Yes, sir.
I wonder, nowhere in this bill, no, you brought it before Howard, but nowhere in this bill, I believe I'm true in saying does it deal with attractive nuisance, Mr. Chairman? And I think normally, isn't it former Chairman McCall that would want anything that deals with large animals? Wouldn't it, he want attractive nuisance dealt with in that bill?
We'll let y'all discuss that offline.
All right.
Yeah.
I was just hoping that I wasn't the nuisance.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No more questions. Come on up, Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Fourth page, fourth from the bottom, House Bill 1286. All right, everybody ready? What we're doing with House Bill 1286, we're bringing, it's a Department of Ag bill requested by the department. It sets the fees and licensing for the ones that are retail, wholesale, manufacturers that are not being issued license now, but it's bringing them in to where we can hopefully regulate some of these products you are seeing on the shelves that people, your kids are able to walk into and get right off the shelf. So, but anyway, we already do a good job, with the processors and growers, but we're bringing the wholesale retailers and manufacturers into that.
Good. Thank you, sir. I see no questions.
I have one other, Mr.
Yes,
Chairman,
sir.
if I may.
Sure.
Page 5, top of the page, House Bill 1338. What we're doing with 1338, we're setting a 3-year moratorium where the EPD cannot accept any new applications for heavy sands mining with a drag line for 3 years. And the purpose of that, the EPD has issued a draft permit for the demonstration mine down in my district, down in Charlton County. So this will give us 3 years for them to collect data before they even can accept another application for a mine in that area.
Okay, we've got a couple of questions.
I figured I might.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Is it not true that under this bill, after the 3 years passes, it would make it easier to mine in and around the Okefenokee Swamp?
I do not think so, because they still have to go through the permitting process. To go through the EPD, very exhaustive process. It's taken 7 years to get to this point now before you get to the judicial review.
Does the gentleman yield for one more question?
I do.
Is it not true that under this bill, it would shorten the timeline for the judicial process by removing a judge's discretion to grant continuances and extensions and permit appeals?
It actually doubles what's in code now from 90 days to 180. So it doubles that time they have to do that, but it sets that in law. So we're actually doubling what's in law now.
Thank you.
Chairman Smith has a question for you.
Gentleman yield.
Yes, to my friend.
Thank you for all the work you put into this bill, trying in a way to satisfy all parties so that we can protect these natural resources and at the same time respect private property rights. Thank you.
Thank you for that comment.
Thank you. Whip Burchett has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Chairman Corbett, for bringing the bill. Isn't it true that there has been a significant push in this Capitol and in Georgia for the protection of Trail Ridge?
That is true.
And isn't it true that your bill protects Trail Ridge?
That is true also. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Chairman Taylor has a question for you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was just curious why it was limited to just the drag mining and not including float mining or other types of processes. It just listed one. Could somebody essentially do a different type of mining? My grandfather was an engineer and that's what he did. So I kind of wondered why it just listed one.
Well, this was tailored just for this particular application, demonstration mine. You've heard for 4 years, either bad actors or it's unproven what the type of mining that they're doing. So this is the only one in the state that does that type of mining for heavy mineral sands. So that's why it's tailored just for this area.
Thank you, sir. No more questions. Did you have another bill?
No, that's all.
That's
Thank
it.
you.
Thank you. Yeah. Representative Cannon.
Thank you, Mr. I also have two bills, Mr. Chairman, if you allow me. First one is House Bill 1052. It's on page 6, the very last page of your blue sheet. It's regarding the CUVA statute. House Bill 1052 LC 442655S. The purpose of this bill is to provide some flexibility in the CUVA statute for non-family farm entities and to give them the ability to rent farmland that is currently enrolled in CUVA. As the code reads today, if a CUVA qualified family farm wanted to lease their farmland to a non-family farm entity, it would breach the underlying CUVA covenant for the landowner. So we spent a good deal of time with Ledge Council working on this. It's a pretty big issue in rural counties. We spoke with local tax assessors as well as the original CUVA author, Richard Broyle. A lot of hours on the phone with Richard. And ACCG gave us a due support vote because this is an issue in rural counties, and I'm sure they're in support of this bill because it's so good, not because I'm a county manager. But overall, the bill incorporates all the original CUVA qualifying restrictions for eligibility, but it does allow some flexibility for some non-family farm entities. Passed unanimously through Ways and Means, and I ask for your favorable consideration.
No questions on that bill. You had one more?
Okay, yes, sir. The next bill is House Bill 1172. It's on page 3 at the bottom. The purpose of this bill, Mr. Chairman, is to allow direct access by patients to physical therapy services. Georgia currently has a form of direct access called restricted direct access. However, several other states in the U.S. military have allowed direct access for some time. Direct access will allow patients to directly seek out therapy services while waiting to see a physician if needed. Under restricted direct access, which is what the current law requires, the number of therapy visits is capped at 8 visits or 21 days before having to pause therapy and wait for a referral from the patient's doctor to continue or resume therapy. This can be a burden for the patient, and is the reason why this bill seeks to allow direct access, which would simplify the process and offer a more streamlined approach to physical therapy for the patient. It's a bipartisan bill that received unanimous approval from regulated industries. I know there are some concerns from MAG. We've worked with them, and I'm willing to commit to some changes in the bill in the Senate, working with Representative Newton on that. So I'm open to any questions.
Do you have a question, Representative Newton?
Thank you for the attention to physical therapy and its importance in helping Georgians get back to full function and quicker access through the direct access. I do appreciate the fact that you said you're willing to work in the Senate to ensure, with no question, that this will not be unlimited, where someone could go 12 months, a year and a half, and possibly have a cancer that's undetected or other injury that needed imaging, which physical therapists can't order, or only a physician can order, or medical provider. But you are committed to making sure that no more than 60 days or 6 weeks will be the max that a patient could go without a referral to a physician, which would allow them to get the imaging and everything they need.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir.
No other questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I have House Bill 1283, LC 481099, which is 5 up from the bottom on page 4. This is a pretty straightforward cleanup bill for the Juvenile Justice Code, just updating or correcting a definition of aggravated assault under Class A designated felony. All we're doing, if you look at the bill on lines 12 and 13, is we're striking provided that such deadly weapon is not a firearm. So this is just clarification and consistency with Class B and Class A designated felony in the definitions, so that it's understood that a firearm is a deadly weapon and that a Class A designated felony could be applied. Passed unanimously out of the committee, and I'll take any questions.
Thank you. See no questions.
Thank you.
Representative Novitz, we didn't see you come in. You want to come on up front? I know these gentlemen would be glad to have you go first.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate it.
I am here this morning to submit for y'all's hopeful approval House Bill 1184. It is at the top of page 4. And this is a bill that is very similar to a bill that I presented last year, which was House Bill 382. But House Bill 1184 is a bill that would introduce evidentiary, it would provide for evidentiary privilege for victim-centered programs, victim offender communications. This is similar to evidentiary privileges that are already found in contexts that include mediation, communications to members of the clergies, apologies made by medical providers, communications between a victim of family violence and sexual assault and the agents providing services to that victim, to that survivor. For these programs to work, there must be open dialogue and acknowledgement of wrongdoing, and that requires the evidentiary privilege provided by this bill. Without this privilege, defendants won't take accountability for the harm they have caused, and victims and survivors in Georgia will not obtain the healing that they seek and, frankly, which they deserve. This would provide for victim-centered justice programs for survivors and victims of crimes in Georgia. Again, these programs are victim-centered, victim-led, they are optional, and they are trauma-informed. They opt in. House Bill 1184 is supported by Street Grace, the Georgia Commission on Family Violence, the Georgia Coalition Against Domestic Violence, the YWCA of Metro Atlanta, the Georgia Justice Project, the Alliance for Safety and Justice, and Crime Survivors for Safety and Justice. It includes language suggested by the Georgia Board of Pardons and Paroles, and the Prosecuting Attorney's Council has no objection to the bill. I ask for your favorable consideration here today. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. See no questions.
Thank you.
Thank you. Chairman Perkle.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On page 4, second from the bottom. Page 4, second from the bottom, I bring you HB 1294. Natural gas capacity is one of the key pinch points in economic development in many parts of the state. We heard this echoed as we went around the state with the Rural Development Council. Some communities have zero excess capacity, including mine, to attract good-paying manufacturing jobs, while some have absolutely zero natural gas at all. This bill merely provides the authorization for GFA to provide financing for natural gas projects for cities and counties across the state. It is a natural extension of what they do already in providing financing opportunities for cities and counties for water, sewer, solid waste infrastructure. I can't imagine a more important program growth need than natural gas availability in the most economically distressed parts of the state. I ask you to please consider this bill for us.
Thank you, sir. See no questions.
Thank you.
Representative Leverett.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning. Good morning, members of the committee. I have two bills, Mr. Chairman, that, with your permission, I'll try to address here today. The first one is on page 2, just a little below the middle of the page. It's House Bill 846. That's 846. This is a result of a request I had from a constituent who worked for a school district, and many school districts do not collect, withhold, and pay into Social Security. So the constituent sort of learned after retirement that she was not eligible for Social Security. So this simply requires that school districts periodically notify their employees as to whether they withhold or not and what other plans they're available for. And then once there's separation, or the employee resigns, retires, or is fired, that they would also receive that notice again, just to make sure they're aware of what's going on with respect to Social Security eligibility.
No questions. What's the other one?
Thank you. The next one is on page 4, and it is just slightly above the middle of the page. That's House Bill 1223. 1223 on page 4. This is relates to soil amendments. It's a program in the Department of Agriculture that's a great program. It provides application of certain substances or materials or, frankly, byproducts of agricultural operations that have use in the growing process, and it's a way for those to be kind of put back into the productive cycle. So it's a great program. The Department of Ag has been doing that about 50 years, but like everything, there's some bad actors. We have some that have been in my district, and I'm trying to deal with it in a somewhat surgical way, excuse me, without messing things up for all the people who are doing it right. So it basically adds a new violation. If you're currently subject to a consent order or a finding that you've got soil contamination, surface water contamination, or groundwater contamination on a piece of property, and there's a consent order with respect to the owner of that property or the operator at that site, you can't keep applying soil amendments until that is cleared. So it's again, it's intended to be very surgical. The Department of Agriculture, I want to thank Commissioner Harper and Catherine Russell. They really engaged on this, gave me a lot of good feedback. EPD was very helpful, and the Poultry Federation and Georgia Farm Bureau are at least neutral on it. They aren't opposed to it. So I would urge your consideration. This is a really big issue out in my part of the state.
Thank you, sir. No questions.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members of the committee.
Representative Fleming.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I bring to you this morning HB 1224. It is on page 4, about 9 down. What HB 1224 does, it deals with the Tuition Equalization Grant Program, which is administered by the Georgia Student Finance Commission. What this would do currently, if you are a Georgia student attending a Georgia private college, you're eligible for $500 a semester in this Tuition Equalization Grant Program. What this bill would do, if students are in a high-demand career field or studying to go into a high-demand career field, it would increase their tuition by 150%, so they'd go from $500 to $750 a semester. We do have language in the bill, lines 168 through 172, basically saying whenever funds are sufficient. It's also notable that this would not go into effect until the 2026-2027 school year. That gives time for the governor's new Workforce Development Board to be set up and start publishing these yearly lists, but also gives Student Finance Commission time to set up the program and rules around it. With that, Mr. Chairman, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, sir. Don't see any questions.
Thank you all.
Chairman LaHood.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. House Bill 1335 is on the very bottom of page 4. And this bill was a collective effort between the senior living industry, the Department of Community Health, Alzheimer's Association, Chair Cooper's office. And what this bill does is, for the first time, the department will recognize a medical alert system in a senior living community. For example, a wearable medical alert device where the resident can trigger it to seek help when they need help. It simply does not increase the staffing requirements or decrease the staffing requirements. It just simply allows a little bit more fluidity on how the staff float around the building, as long as this medical alert system is in place and they can respond timely.
Okay, thank you. See no questions.
All right, thank you.
Representative Barrett.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen. House Bill 1123 is about halfway down on the 3rd page. It's LC number 481234S. This bill is another important step in Georgia's fight against elder abuse, neglect, and exploitation. In 2018, House Bill 635 was passed, authorizing each of the 49 judicial circuits in Georgia to create an adult abuse, neglect, and exploitation multidisciplinary team, also known as an MDT. The original bill was passed unanimously in the House and Senate. This bill makes 3 improvements to that legislation. First, it creates a statewide regional coordinator program within the Prosecuting Attorney's Council of Georgia. These regional coordinators will work with the MDTs around the state. Second, it sets the expectation that each judicial circuit will have a multidisciplinary team, though it gives broad latitude to each circuit to tailor this to its own specific needs, and is not required unless the regional coordinator program has been funded under the Prosecuting Attorney's Council. Finally, it proposes the creation of an Elder Abuse Justice Coalition comprised of a broad array of stakeholders. This bill is a legislative priority of the Georgia Council on Aging, the Coalition of Advocates for Georgia's Elderly, also known as COAGE, the Alzheimer's Association, the Georgia Gerontology Society, the Prosecuting Attorney's Council of Georgia, and many others. This bill was passed unanimously by subcommittee and committee, and I welcome any questions you might have.
Thank you, sir. I don't see any questions.
Thank you.
Representative Seaborn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Committee, today I present House Bill 1017. It's on page 3 of your yellow sheet. 1017 is also referred to as the Squatter Reform Act. This bill addresses a growing problem we have here in Georgia of squatters taking residence in people's homes without the owner's knowledge or authorization, and they refuse to leave. They have no lease, no rental agreement, or if they do have a rental agreement, it's fake. But in each of these cases, they have no right to be on the property, and owners are having to go through the eviction process to remove them. In some cases, that's 8 to 10 months, and some 2 years. So this bill revises Georgia law so that the owner can expeditiously have the squatter removed from their property and get a judgment for payment for lost revenue and damages. It sends a clear message that squatting is illegal in Georgia. It will not be tolerated, and if you decide to do it, you will be arrested, charged with a misdemeanor, removed from the property, fined, and possibly spend some time in jail. That is the bill, and I ask for your favorable consideration.
Thank you, sir. Don't see any questions. Representative Hilton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. If you turn to me to the top of page 4, this is House Bill 1186. 1186 increases transparency and education by requiring GOSA in conjunction with the Department of Education to aggregate the components of the CCRPI into a single score. And if it'd be okay with you, I'm going to present House Bill 1122 if there's no questions.
Yes, sir. No questions on that bill. Go ahead.
If you turn back to page 3, right where your hole punch is, midway through the page, 1122 provides 3 components for our charter schools, provides for more superintendents and principals, allows for part-time teachers, students to attend charter schools, and removes a conflict of interest in regards to charter school boards.
No questions.
Thank you, sir.
Representative Carpenter.
Thank you, Chairman. Second page, halfway down, House Bill 822. What this bill seeks to do is update the sex education code in our schools in the state of Georgia. It does 5 things. First thing it does is it changes AIDS to HIV. It makes sure that sex education is medically accurate, age appropriate. It also reaffirms the state's commitment to abstinence, and then it addresses consent under the code, line 28, the significance of personal boundaries and responsibility in relationships. If I have any questions.
Don't see any questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Representative Gaines.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. House Bill 1201 on the 4th page near the top. This bill just cleans up some legislation that we passed to support victims of human trafficking, to make sure that victims who go through the first offender process versus actually getting a conviction would be eligible to have their sentences vacated.
Thank you, sir. Don't see
Thank you,
any-
Mr. Chairman.
No questions. Go ahead, Rep. Come on up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. I am coming from page 3 in the yellow pages, middle of the page, House Bill 1104, which was previously heard before the committee, but there were some changes made. House Bill 1104 is going to inform and educate our student athletes, their parents, and coaches about mental health risk, and will raise awareness for mental health resources available to student athletes. This bill creates no obligations for student athletes or their parents and requires no further screening. I ask for your favorable consideration.
Thank you, sir. And that's on the yellow sheet there, 1104. No questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. That takes care of everybody on the wall. How about committee members? Mash your button there, and then if you have a question, raise your hand. Chairman Cooper.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I beg your forgiveness on this, but I want to clear up a misconception that's going around about one of the bills. It's very important to me and the patients of Georgia, and that's House Bill 924. That's about white bagging. And I'm hearing chatter that this is not really needed. And just to make sure about what it does, this is the difference between having, if you're a cancer patient or seriously ill and need infusions, and having that medicine mixed by a pharmacy out of state and sent to you through the mail or however, and having it mixed when you are at the infusion centers. I've visited in infusion centers. The reason you're not hearing from more patients is because they are fighting for their lives. And the difference is, and I wanted to make sure I knew what I'm talking about, it is so important that they get the medicine they need at the right time, which means when they go to the infusion centers, they are checked to see if they are physically able to get a medication to help, fight their disease. And if they're not, they don't get it that time. If they are, it's mixed specifically for them in the location. And this is extremely important to people who have cancer and all of the other serious blood disorders. I'm sorry about the misinformation. It is really important. And if you could have been at that center with me, you would understand why I'm taking your time, and I beg your forgiveness for it.
Thank you, ma'am. Any questions? You have a question? Representative Knight, hit your button there. Okay.
Not so much a question, but well said, Chairman Cooper.
Thank you. Okay, Chairman Powell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Bring to you House Bill 17. This bill's been around for about 3 years. We passed it out of the House, went to the Senate, got held up on the last day, didn't make it through. Last year we passed it out of committee, came to rules, didn't move forward because we weren't doing election bills last year. Quite a simple bill. It just mandates that the local boards of the boards of election will use drop boxes. It'll be secure. It'll have a chain of custody form as prescribed by the Secretary of State's office, so we know who is in and out of these ballot boxes, whether it be moving ballots from a drop box or absentee ballots coming in, or the opening of the absentee ballots, or the challenge ballots, or the provisional ballots, or the election day ballots. It just basically would solve those issues that we saw a few years ago when they said who got into the box, who was this and who was that, and also these being a watertight box, so we don't have another situation that comes up that arouse suspicion about overflowed bathrooms and the such. Believe it or not, it went through the committee, wasn't any opposition. I mean, all the warring parties over elections finally came together, and they all like this bill, apparently.
Thank you. Any questions on that bill? No questions. Thank you. Chairman Stevens.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On page 3, third from the bottom, House Bill 1146 came through committee. This is, as you might know, yesterday we had Hyundai here, which is depositing $12.6 billion of investment into our state. Several thousand employees, 12 times bigger than anything that we've ever done in the state. This is the missing piece for workforce development. Has to do with allowing a private water system to supply water in an area that cannot be supplied by the county, but it gives them an 18-month period to at least plan for it. That's all it does.
Okay. Any questions? Thank you, sir. Was there a question? I'm sorry. Punch your button there. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Is it not true that there were concerns in committee and this bill did not pass unanimously?
The gentleman's correct. It did not pass unanimously. It did pass. And again, the question that always comes back to can we supply water within this county, which does not have a water system, and this gives them an out for a private system, the biggest private system in the state, to supply water in the area if the county cannot.
Okay, thank you. Was there a question? Representative Smith had a question, okay. Chairman Smith.
My question is...
Use your mic, please.
My question is not true. It goes to support of the bill. to review this for the people who are listening, this is the largest project ever in the state of Georgia. If we do not get them these resources, then we're going to have one huge vacant building along I-16.
Thank you, ma'am. I got lights blinking all over the board here. Or there another question on that bill? Okay. Chairman Hitchens.
I bring you House Bill 499, second from the bottom on the first page. I've had the pleasure of working with a group of about 100 families at home with regard to children with disabilities. They're primarily children that have Down syndrome, autism, they're on the autism spectrum or other disabilities. And I've learned a lot of things. First off is there is a higher rate of divorce among these families, primarily because of the child, I would believe. But secondarily, what occurs at the age of 18 when they reach the age of majority, the non-custodial parent just walks away and any support that's received at that juncture is voluntarily. I had a bill last year that passed unanimously in committee, and when I got back to my office, I got a call from the Department of Human Resources and said that the bill I had was going to cause a lot of people a lot of problems. And the reason for that is if you exceed Social Security insurance limitations, any money that it cuts off and any money that you've received has to be repaid. So I went back to work, and I've appeared twice before the Child Support Commission this year, and I've looked at other states, and what you have here is the Florida bill that passed both houses in Florida without a dissenting vote. And what it does is it provides a irrevocably assigned to support the Special Needs Trust Fund. And the monies go into the trust fund, and the responsible, the parent, guardian, or the institution is allowed to take that money out and take care of the child. I have a special case that really brought this to my attention where a lady who's taken care of the child all her life has no means of visible support. She has no ability to make any money. And her husband just sold his business for $30 million. He would not even pay for hospitalization for the child that goes to therapy on Mondays and Fridays, which was $50 each time. Now, without the hospitalization, it's $500. I just believe that there are a lot of people across this state that fall into this category that live in poverty because, and it's just like the other child support, it's dependent upon the non-custodial parent's ability to pay. If he has no ability to pay.
Thank you, sir. Was there a question? Representative Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There was two things. I just wanted to say for one of the few times I agree with the gentleman from Effingham County on anything. But secondly, I know he's licensed. That $30 million shouldn't have stopped him from doing what he needed to do to that no good character.
Thank you, sir. Any other questions on that bill? Okay. Chair Lady Dempsey has a...
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have 4 measures, and I will be glad to take them in the order that you prefer, whether you want the substitute now or later.
Substitute later.
Awesome. Thank you. So the first is House Bill 1344. That is on page 5, second from the top. This is this year's agency bill for the Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Disabilities. It has 4 main components, all which passed out of this chamber last year as part of House Bill 520. It amends the membership of the Behavioral Health Coordinating Council to help with quorum challenges. It also removes 2 reporting requirements that have been duplicative due to newer initiatives created in House Bill 1013 and implemented by DBHCD. And finally, it grants the Board of Professional Counselors, Social Workers, Marriage and Family Therapists the authority to waive certain experience requirements for out-of-state applicants who are applying for licensure in Georgia. It cuts red tapes and take another step toward providing the services that our Georgians deserve.
Any questions on that bill? Thank you. Chairman, you have 2 more? I'm sorry.
On page 1, at the top, 2 resolutions, 901 and 902. These are two compensation resolutions for two very egregious cases that happen in my home community that I know way too much about. I know that some people struggle with doing these. We passed a measure last year in the House, House Bill 364, that Leader of Strachan and Representative Holcomb were a part of, to make it where we do not have to do these anymore. But at this point in time, it is very necessary. One of these cases involves even very egregious acts by the GBI. So I hope you will take time to read them and consider heavily that not only should we pass these two, but we should use them to help leverage support in the Senate to pass the bill, HB 364.
Okay, any questions on those? Chairman Livingston, you had...
Bring you House Bill 1206. It's on page 4, 5th from the top. This is a consumer protection bill that deals with electronic signatures. This bill requires the entity capturing the electronic signature to provide or offer to provide a copy of the executed document that the individual has just signed. This can be done either with a physical copy or an electronic copy. Background on this, these freestanding electronic devices, all you're doing is signing your signature. You're not seeing what you're signing, and unless they provide you with an executed copy, you have no way of knowing for sure that what they've told you that you are signing is what you are signing. So all the bill does is to put into code that they are to provide or offer to provide a copy of the executed document.
Any questions on that bill? Thanks, sir. Chairman Smith, did you have a question, a bill?
No, just a bill.
Okay. A bill, a bill. Go ahead. Excuse me, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On page 4, in the middle of the page, it's House Bill 1253, and it's what I call a micro-macro look at the state of Georgia with our regional commissions. And Section 2 deals with the restructuring of the regional commissions. Section 1 is taking House Bill 999, which is dealing with several serious issues with our much smaller rural counties, and it forms, in Section 1, it forms a special rural district. This special rural district will work if these counties can show that they have insufficient resources to provide them.
Chairman Smith, hold up just one second. This is a rule substitute. You have a copy of it. It's House Bill 1253, LC 472957S. You all should have a copy of it, and explain those differences for us, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I misunderstood. I thought I had to present the whole bill and then go back to the rules, but I'm very grateful for this, so thank you very much. So anyway, delete what I just said, and we will go back to Section 1 on the rule substitute. And this has come out of a study committee for several years by our House Rural Council that was created by Speaker Ralston. What we're seeing in the state of Georgia is areas of the state of Georgia that do not have sufficient services, do not have qualified administrators, do not have the resources they need. They have declining population, they have declining revenue, and they're not able to provide the services needed by the citizens of the state of Georgia, which is one of our obligations at the state level. And so what this bill seeks to do is to create a formula, a template, by which these counties can join together willingly and share the expertise of an administrator. This administrator, in turn, we hope, will enable these counties to finally be able to qualify for state and federal funds. To make sure we're following the right process, this bill also includes up to 3 pilot test programs for the counties that are willing to participate in this. I cannot emphasize enough the seriousness of this problem, and I thank the committee for listening to me. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions, Chairman Smith, on that bill? Okay, I see no questions. Representative Chairman Jaspers has a bill for us.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On the last page under structured rule, House Bill 403, it's income tax credit for the installation of a geothermal heating and air system. The credit's for $5,000 a year with a 5-year sunset. Save homeowners money, employees a number of people, and most importantly, will lower the electrical demand on our power grid.
No questions on that. Back to Chairman Smith's bill over there. These rules substitute to House Bill 1253. Is there a motion to approve the rules substitute? We have a motion and a second. Is there any opposition? Okay, it's approved. Now we have a couple of others that we need to deal with. Chair Darlene Taylor has a rule substitute.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, I have a substitute for House Bill 1149, working off of LC 47295-1S. And this was Representative Mainer's bill for disclosure of the discretionary funds by constitutional officers. The only change that was made that had any was to define what discretionary funds are, and they are things that are not appropriated, funds that are not appropriated. That's the only change to the bill.
Any questions of that? Is there a motion that that be approved? Have a motion and a second. Any opposition? It's approved, okay? Have one more. Chair Dempsey.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. A substitute for House Bill 441, LC 5252OS. This simply will codify teledentistry into Georgia law, a true asset that was used during COVID. You may have received some emails from constituents. This will authorize and regulate the practice of teledentistry in Georgia by Georgia licensed oral health care team members. All mentions of dental assistants, which would have been what you might have heard from some people that you know and some that you don't, have been removed, except for in the second line where it is part of the code, so it is referred to there. There is also clarifying language which was added to page 4. This is language provided by the Department of Public Health to accentuate and carve out for those safety net settings where they provide these services.
Thank you. We have a question. Chairman Martin has a question for you.
Chairman Dempsey, it's a serious question here on this. As you know, may recall, a few years ago we had some work about direct supervision, indirect supervision that dealt with those, specifically with those safety net settings. So my question is this: anybody that's doing things now for those that are underserved, those that are older, this bill does not make it harder for those individuals to get service. This correct?
It absolutely does not. The
Okay.
whole purpose of that is to have this provided by licensed professionals that are supervised.
No, but I understand that the bill that was adopted a few years ago, this does not make it harder for them. This does not mean a dentist has to be there now that we had in law that didn't have to be there before.
It does not make it harder. It makes it better for all who will be receiving the services. A dentist does not have to be on site. There is a supervisory role which connects a patient to a dentist.
Yeah, so this doesn't change. That doesn't change with it. Final question, if I may: is it true that that's new in this? That's defined in this section of the bill. That's clarified for people that we might have received questions that from people that might not have understood the intent of the bill previously, that thought that that was being impacted.
That is absolutely correct. Thank you for your question.
Thank you. You have a question, Chairman Cooper?
Representative Dempsey, I think what he's trying to ask, we allowed dental hygienists to work in our rural school health programs, checking children's teeth and doing things like that without a dentist having to see them first. And so this does not go back on that, correct?
That is correct.
No other questions. Thank you. All right, I'll entertain a motion that we approve that, House Bill 441 by substitute. Move. Have a move and a second. Any opposition? It's approved, okay? We have one other bill I'd like for us to bring up for consideration. It's on the yellow sheet, and you should have a copy of it. It's House Bill 1339. It's a CON bill. I'll be happy to go into any explanation anybody wants. If not, I'd like to have a motion that it's in a second. Any opposed? Thank you. Okay. Okay, just to make sure we stay busy today, we're going to set a supplemental calendar. Under modified open, House Bill 1303. Have a move and a second. Is there any opposition? It's on. Under modified structured, House Bill 643. Have a move and a second. Is there any opposition? It's on. House Bill 1018.
Move.
Have a move and seconds. Any opposition? We have an objection. All those in favor of putting it on, raise your hand. All those opposed? It's on. House Bill 1093.
Move.
Have a move in several seconds. Any opposition? Have an objection. All those in favor of putting it on, raise your hand. All those opposed? It's on. House Bill 1339.
Move.
Have a move in seconds. Is there any opposition? It's on. House Bill 1138.
Move.
Move in seconds. Is there any opposition? It's on. Under structured, House Bill 971.
Move.
Have a move, several seconds. Is there any opposition? It's on. Under structured, House Bill 1115.
Move.
Move and seconded. Is there any opposition? It's on. Structured, House Bill 1182.
Second.
Moved and seconded. It's on. Have an objection? Excuse me. All those in favor of putting it on, raise your hand. Any opposed? Like sign. It's on. Okay. I'm going to go over these just to be sure we've got them all. House Bill 1303. House Bill 643. House Bill 1018. House Bill 1093. House Bill 1339. House Bill 1138. Under structured, House Bill 971. House Bill 1115. House Bill 1182. Okay. I recognize Vice Chair Ballinger for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that under Rule 33.3, that debate be limited to 1 hour, time to be divided at the discretion of the chair.
All those in favor of limiting debate, say aye. Aye. All those opposed? All those in favor, raise your hand. All those opposed? It passes. Okay, thank you very much. We're adjourned.